Hey everyone, welcome to Pipes, Tobacco, and Whiskey. So I'm here with my buddy Warren Bile. Hey Warren. And we are at Smokers Abbey in
Park.
Cedar Park, Texas, which is just outside of Austin. And we are in a beautiful smoking lounge that I really wanted to kind of share with you guys. Got an episode here for you that's really interesting. This episode is Mark Ryan and how he started Daughters and Ryan and how it eventually progressed with all the U.S. regulations, the FDA regulations. I think it's going to be something that you're really interested in watching. I've got more to follow this, but for right now, we're just going to give you about 20 minutes of that conversation. We were actually in St. James Parish in Louisiana with Mark at his Perique factory and was kind enough to sit down with us and kind of share his story. So I hope you enjoy this. Guys, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. Don't forget, make all your piping moments count. Take care. Bye-bye. Mark, can you tell us a little bit about your association with Daughters and Ryan?
Sure.
Would you mind sharing
Absolutely.
your story?
I moved to Johnson County in 1991.
Johnson County in North Carolina?
North Carolina. My ex-wife at the time was a physician. They were recruiting her because the hospital was hurt in a little rural area. And I was burnt out working in the corporate scene, being in charge of the whole finance department and strategic planning for like 60 properties. It was just nonstop work all the time, stressing me out. And I was on the board of directors of the Richmond Wine Society for 8 years. I think that's what got my palate so fine-tuned for blending. I was the youngest board member in the country. And I came down with my ex to look at a hospital down here. And there was a winery in town. And I went in and talked to him. And they said, actually, we need a manager. And I'm thinking, interview me. Well, they hired me because nobody down there had the training I had. MBA, finance freak, math freak. And what I think happened was the hospital called them up and said, the wife won't move unless the guy's got a job, so hire him. Because they were long bankrupt when they hired me. I didn't realize it. And it took me 3 months to get in, being a finance guy, and get into the books heavily and do a bunch of pro forma statements and do all the ratios. And I realized, holy smokes, they're bankrupt as hell. And I'm signing checks, and I'm looking into it. My predecessor had been withholding and not paying the feds for 2 quarters. So I'm like, I'm not signing any more paychecks. Hadn't paid sales and use tax reports for 5 months. Had let all the operating bonds expired, all the insurance bonds. We couldn't even make wine legally.
Wow.
And I'm like, what have I done? I moved my wife from a practice where literally 80% of her patients had college degrees to Johnson County, where at that time 70% didn't have a high school diploma. The hospital was horrible, and it was Panic City. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? I got 8 years of college, and there isn't a job in the whole county for me, literally. I'm going to have to work in the Research Triangle Park. Well, I had 2 little baby girls, toddler and a baby. I'm like, last thing I want to do is get back in that rat race, travel an hour or more each way. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I was a computer geek back then and did everything on the computer in the early 90s, if you can imagine. Right after they invented it, I did everything. And I taught computers at the community college, okay? And then I can't remember, I think it was it Bill Clinton in the early 90s? I remember seeing him on TV, I'm going to make cigarettes $40 a carton. And I'm like, damn, I'm in Johnson County. We got tobacco and sweet potatoes, and that's it. I don't want to grow sweet potatoes. But if cigarettes get like that, they'll start rolling their own again. So I'm going to look into that. And in, I guess, the third quarter of 91, I went to Whiteville, where Top Tobacco had a plant. And you remember at Top, they had those, they looked like gas cans that were yellow that said Top Tobacco. And I went down to see him, and I watched the line. The cans were going by so fast I couldn't read them. And I asked the guy, "Man, how many hours a day you run that shift?" He goes, "What are you, crazy? 8 shifts a day. I mean, 8 hour shifts, 3 days a week, three shifts a day, 7 days a week. You run this thing 24 hours a day, 7 days? Yeah, man." So I figured when I left, if I can capture 1% of that company's business, I'll make a living. They sold me my first tobacco, one box. You know those C48s? That was my first purchase. Okay, one box, like 220 pounds. I borrowed $5,000, bought a computer and a display ad in the National Enquirer. And that little display ad was about this big, and it was more than the computer. But back then, I'm figuring, how am I going to launch it? Well, largely it's low-income people that are high taxed. I'm going to look at where all the high taxes are, and I'm going to advertise in newspapers in those states, and I'm going to hit the rag magazines, that people that are going to be more susceptible to affecting their smoking habit at a cheaper price. And that's how I launched the company. I had 2 little girls, so it's Daughters and Ryan. My daughters came first, even in the name of my company.
Cool.
And in November, in November of '91, I had a quarter-page color ad in the San Francisco Examiner Christmas catalog, and it was in every newspaper in California because that's where taxes were high. And I had that ad, and I had my little roll your own with a hand roller, and I had the thing with cigarette tubes in a machine, because during my research I found a company in Canada that made cigarette tubes. Because in that era, people in the U.S. in the 90s just hand rolled. Well, cigarettes are so prohibitive in Canada. The guys up there at Clinton Tube Company, I can't remember his name now, invented the stuff to make a tube and to have an injector that made it. So I brought tubes in. I was the first person in the United States to bring cigarette tubes into this country. Okay? Those guys at CTC, Clinton Tube Company, actually, I can't think of his name right now. He'd actually tried it, I think in '78 in the U.S., and it was a Laredo machine that he'd made. It was 2-thing injector. One pushed the tobacco and one injected. But it never stuck, because back then you could buy cartons of cigarettes for under $3. Why would you make your own? Okay? So we went a decade, nobody had ever heard of tubes. I ran that ad as the first person to bring cigarette tubes back in the United States. November '92. And for a while, man, I controlled that market. I had the first webpage in the world for Roll Your Own. CigaretteTobacco.com. That was before anybody knew what the internet was. My URL was worth millions back then. And then, Democrats get in there and make it illegal to find anything that has tobacco in it. And so I lost that. That was one of Obama did 3 things. First thing he did, he made it legal to ship through the mail. So from 100 orders a day, 6 employees, we closed it, right? Because it couldn't ship through the mail. 6 people went on welfare. Well, then he signed, and that was the PACT Act. Then he signs the S-chip. That's what increased the tax on Roll Your Own from $1 to $25 a pound. And pipe tobacco went from $1 to $3. Okay? And that one day I lost everything I accumulated in my adult lifetime. Because I was a Roll Your Own company masquerading as a pipe tobacco company. And I was in a master settlement agreement paying $6 a pound. You figured out 25 plus 6, $31 a pound to the government, and I don't make $1 a pound? Hell no.
Yeah, there's not.
I want to be on the government payroll. I want government benefits. It's no longer my company. I'm a collection agency for the government. So we changed the pipe tobacco, and that's what everybody else did. The difference was I already was going to the pipe shows and had pipe customers. Okay? So, and I was, out of the 200 or 300, I was the only one that ever did it seriously. That had pipe tobacco, because they were all my friends by that point, and they were buying my stuff, and I was the only one who was going to 6 pipe shows a year, and continued to. And everybody else was just doing it, telling the government. I changed the cut, and everybody else changed the cut. It was a scam on the government. But then the dumb shit does that. Then he does the FDA bill. It had been vetoed twice before. It went back so far, I didn't have a single product on the grandfather day. I had 600 SKUs I had to destroy. roll your own pipe tobacco, shisha tobacco, filtered cigars, premium cigars, everything in the dump. Throw over $1 million worth of stuff away.
Wow.
Now, you think that doesn't hurt? I mean, especially when you're dumping your legacy. You got no place to put it. All these handmade things that I made, you know, for different processes, because I was always making a jig for something to make the work easier. What are you gonna do? Throw it away? You know, all my papers. Well, that's how I got into it. Is to defeat the government. But when I first got into it, because I went with the premium roll your own, I had 3 or 4 categories of customers. One were the people that just didn't want to pay a high dollar, right? They wanted something cheap. The second were people that hated taxes, didn't want to pay any tax to the government. We weren't regulated until January of 2000. I never did a report, never paid a single tax until January of 2000. And then the third was what in economics is called conspicuous consumption. That's where the guy in the boardroom takes out a bag of DNR tobacco and makes a cigarette with all these millionaires. Oh, what you smoking? That smells good. Yeah, it's the best, man. It's handmade by the best company. Conspicuous consumption. Well, then they did the tax, so that category went out. But then we had the following. And it was funny because in economic theory, there's some products that are called inferior goods, which when your income goes up and the economy goes up, you consume less. Okay? Like butter. Okay, if the economy's going down, you don't have any money, you go from butter to lard, right? You go from factory made to roll your own. All right? Well, since I was the only one doing premium roll your own, although Peter Stokely, you could argue with it too. When the economy went bad, people went to roll your own, I got customers. Okay? When it started getting good, the people that were buying the shitty roll your own upgraded to my high grade roll your own. So no matter during that period, no matter what the economy did, I doubled every 2 years.
Wow.
But you start from nothing, that's easy to do. But I was constantly having to add on to the building or move. But
And this was in North Carolina.
It was a wild ride. For a while, man, I felt like I was on a bareback horse holding on to the mane so I wouldn't fall off. Just hanging on. You know, I mean, we were so big at one point that if it wasn't on my webpage, it wouldn't work because we controlled the high-end category. And I was at a big event in Florida one year with the guy that ran Clinton Tube Company, and we were in the pool after the event, and we're talking. He happened to mention how many machines their company made that year, and I'm like, you realize I bought 1 out of 5 machines you made? I bought 20% of everything you produced last year. Well, back when I started, the Premier Supermatic, which was the main injector during that era, was the only really good one. Retailers are selling them for $99. Okay, the little one would be like $69, and then the real small one would be like $19 or $20. I was buying them by the pallet. I'd buy 2 or 3, 4 pallets of those. Well, I had $20 in them. I sold them for $29.95. I reset the price on those machines for the entire United States.
Everybody was buying your
because
lower
why
cost.
would they buy $100?
Right.
You buy from 30 from Mark, and people would call. It's like, look, man, you're buying my tobacco. I'll give you the machine because you buy my tobacco regularly. So don't worry about it. I'm not ripping everybody off. And what happened, you know, when cigarettes went crazy, everybody wanted to do roll your own. Well, all of a sudden, Clinton Tube, their demand goes up 500-600%. I always got my order, and I would have all these big distributors call. Hey man, you got any tubes? I can't get any tubes from Clinton Tube. And I'm thinking, I got a warehouse full. I'm like, what do you need? And I'm thinking, well, if I sell it to you and it's hard to get back, I won't be able to help my customers. I felt like saying, why do you wait 60 days to pay your bills? I pay everything within 15 days. You know, when you're deadbeat, they're not going to look after you. Plus, in that era, since I sold so many, I knew how to take them apart and rebuild them. I fixed them all the time. And what I did, because they had this little Indonesian guy in Plattsburgh, New York, where if it was defective, you had to send it to him. You couldn't understand the poor guy, and I loved him to death, but he was just impossible. So what I would do when a customer would call, hey man, my machine's broken. How long have you had it? Well, it's just been 2 or 3 months. I would place it for free, just send it back. But if it was real long and really they all wanted to go to Plattsburgh, I'd say, well, I'll tell you what, I can't really help you with that. But I'll tell you what, I don't want you to be without, because it's been over a year. I can't really do it if it's over a year. But you can order some tobacco today, right? Yeah. I got the little machine that I get. I think it retails for like $20. I don't have anything in it. I'll send you one for free with your order, and that way you can send it to Plattsburgh and you won't be without. So I was doing stuff like that. Plus, if it was somebody where it was in between, and it's like, send it back to me, and I'll send you a replacement. And then when I would collect 10 or 15, I'd send them all to Plattsburgh.
Yeah.
And they'd send them back to me fixed. If I had somebody that was poor, it's like, $10 here, man, it's been rebuilt, you can have it. You know, I'd swap them out. Well, when the shit hit the fan with supplies, who are they going to sell to?
Yeah, they're going to...
Somebody that supports their product. I mean, I have people call up, oh, I'm never going to do it again. My girls would freak out. Oh, this machine did that, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, Mark, I can't handle this guy. Get on the phone. He's never going to buy from us again. The machine didn't work, the damn blah, blah, it broke. I'd get on. First thing I'd say is, man, I hate when that daggone machine acts up like that. Tell me what it's doing. So you tell me, you know what, I know how to fix that. I tell you what, you going to order tobacco today? Yeah. I'll send you the parts for free. When you get them, if you can't figure it out, I'll tell you what to do. And I'd send them parts for free. They'd fix it. And they'd call me back. It's like, I'll never buy from you again. What are you going to order? I'm going to order $400 worth of tobacco. You know? And the girls would freak. It's like, how'd you do that? It's like empathy.
Yeah.
And you realize the damn machine will frustrate the hell out of you because the tobacco's moist. It's jammed. It's too dry and ground up. It'll drop a cherry and burn your seat up in your car. You know, humidity will drive you nuts back then. You know, with the tobacco.
Did you save any of those?
I didn't say much of anything.
Everything.
Everything went to the dump.
Forgive my ignorance, but is Daughters and Ryan still up and running?
I closed Daughters and Ryan December 31st, 2020.
So about
With
2
the
years
FDA,
now.
I had to because that was the final day. It was September 18th. Because originally it was September 18th or 15th, and 16, and then 18, and then 20 was it. And you know, when all those taxes, when all those things hit in 09, I told Mike McNeil, I've been shot dead. I just haven't bled out. I'm going to live a little while longer. But we've all been shot dead. If you look at these 3 bills, I just haven't bled out. It just took me 10 years to bleed out. And Mike, oh my God. Mike, oh, it's the end of the world. You know, what in the hell are you doing in tobacco business today? you know how Mike McNeil is. Have you heard him go off?
Yeah.
He is so funny, man. And he does this rant about, in fact, I saw it on YouTube, about how if he hadn't found Mary McNeil, he'd be a bum on the corner of the street begging for money. I wouldn't have 2 pennies. Have you seen him do that? He goes on, man. I wouldn't have a thing. He goes on and on and on. Well, at the Chicago show, I'd seen that video, and I'd heard him do it in a seminar. He does the same thing where he talks about Mary, right? And I figured, I'm going to get him, okay? And was unpacking, I took one of the flaps off of one of my cardboard boxes, and I wrote on there, need money, okay? And I put it up under my shirt, and he was over there at Ewan Reese, and Chuck and Susie are there, right? And Kevin, and I'm blowing smoke up his ass. And, man, we're just going to miss you so much. You know, you've been an icon and a friend for decades, and I just don't know what we're going to do. And I caught your video, and I agree that you'd really have nothing, you know, without Mary. And just to let you know, we're all worried now that you're closing the company, that you don't have much longer with Mary. And if that's the case, I just want you to know we got you covered. And the whole crowd there just went crazy laughing, you know, about how here's your corner sign, here's your sign. And we were all laughing, and Lee was over, you know, in the corner, a little diagonal from us, and he wanting to know what's going on, so we came over. And I showed him the sign. He went down his wallet. He threw 2 $1 bills out for Mike. And we just hooted, man, because Mike is so funny. And when he and some of the other guys start teasing one another, oh my God. It's like Brian Levine. Have you heard he and Brian go at it?
Yeah.
I got a funny story on that. This will crack you up. Okay? I love the Columbus show. I love Jeff and Eddie. They do such a great job. And we were at the Columbus show one year, and I think that's the one where Walt Disney's original art studio is there in proximity. All right? It's the first warehouse, right? Well, Brian, I don't know if you know, he used to work for Walt Disney,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's got all that memorabilia,
Mhm.
right?
Still does.
So
collect it, too. Still
he's
collect
doing the program before dinner, and he's talking about how enamored he was and how excited he was that he'd seen that first warehouse, and that he watched and some men were working. And when we went in for lunch, he said, "I ran in and I snuck a brick." And he put it on the podium, and I just want you to let you know, this is going to be my office with pride. This is a brick off the first Walt Disney production facility. Okay? Well, Mike goes, "Well, just to let you know, Brian, we're going to be closing our operation, and if you want, I can save you a cinder block from one of our buildings." And Brian goes, "Mike, that's okay, but it'd probably smell like vinegar." Okay? Because that's the joke that he cases with a little vinegar, right? And I mean, 250 people are laughing, crying, falling under the table. And Mike, for the first time, had nothing to say. But we're all laughing our ass off. It's like, how do you come back from that? And, it's just our crowd, man. We're so playful. And 200 people, it's like, we all get it. We all love one another, man. We all know everybody in their freaking room. And
Yeah.
we're just digging the hell out of this thing between these two guys. Oh, my God, that was so funny.
Crazy.